Hello and welcome to Islamic Finance Weekly. I am Rahma Say Muhammad, and today we'll be right back on financial technologies. And our topic for today is crowdfunding as a tool for financial inclusion across the globe. And joining me virtually today is Ridwan Sanusi, the founder and chief executive officer of Halvest Financial Technologies. You've seen this face before, and you'll be seeing it today again. Welcome on the show, Ridwan. Thank you for doing this with us.
Yeah, thank you, Rahma, for bringing me back to the show.
All right, thank you so much. Ridwan, I want us to talk about crowdfunding. I remember the older time at the breakfast session with Trust Arthur. That was the day I heard you talking about crowdfunding, and it occurred to me that crowdfunding is actually a thing. I mean, usually I just see it on social media, people raising GoFundMe for people and all of that. And then this is a whole financial establishment talking about crowdfunding. So I was wondering, what is crowdfunding and how does it work? And I'm sure the people out there would also want to know.
Yeah, once again, thank you for bringing me back to the show, Rahma. Crowdfunding essentially is a process through which a group of like-minded individuals pull resources together, financial resources, in meeting a specific purpose, right? So in that definition, you can identify some critical factors like a group of like-minded individuals. Okay, so we've got a specific purpose that we want to achieve, and we're pulling financial resources together. So that's the simple definition of crowdfunding. And the concept of crowdfunding is not new, right? It's been around for so many years, right? If you go back in the history of the prophets, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the companions, when they about to go to certain wars and they probably didn't have like the treasury, they would pull financial resources together that would support the foot soldiers, during the war. Yes, in our own times, technology has helped to kind of digitize the entire process of crowdfunding, being able to hack someone from Malaysia to send money to Nigeria, someone from Canada to send money to Nigeria. So technology has basically helped to scale the concept of crowdfunding, but it's been around for so many years.
Right. Thank you so much, Ridwan, for that brief explanation of crowdfunding. Okay, talking about that, let's highlight the regulations and principles guiding crowdfunding. I'm sure the fiscal authorities have, regulations to guide this, especially since it's, has to do with financial services.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right, because crowdfunding has to do with pulling financial resources together, right? So the way it works is there is a platform, right, or a group of people that manage the crowdfunding platform. So they're asking other people, right, that they might not even know, they might not see them physically, to put their funds on this platform so they can get a specific reward. So when you're talking about regulations, we also need to look at the purpose for which that crowdfunding platform, is working. Remember, I said that crowdfunding is a process through which a group of people put financial resources to meet
Right.
specific purpose. So in the world of crowdfunding, you have different purposes for crowdfunding. You have crowdfunding for charitable causes, you have crowdfunding for investment purposes, you have crowdfunding for supporting someone to go to school, and all of those other types of crowdfunding. So the one that really needs a lot of regulation is where you're putting financial resources for investment purposes, right? Because you're promising people returns on their investment. And the Securities and Exchange Commission in Nigeria has done a fantastic job in ensuring that crowdfunding platforms in Nigeria, especially, are as regulated as possible, even though we can say that the regulations that we have as far as crowdfunding in Nigeria is concerned is not where we expect it to be. It's not yet at the desired level, right?
Mhm.
But because of the rise in so many crowdfunding platforms. And actually, a lot of these crowdfunding platforms have failed in one way or the other. So the Securities and Exchange Commission has stepped in to ensure that new crowdfunding platforms are regulated. But that is not to say that there aren't many other informal crowdfunding platforms out there that are
Right.
operating without the required licenses, that are operating without being regulated. Of course, there's also the crowdfunding for charitable causes, and I don't know of any regulation at the moment for crowdfunding for charitable causes, because a lot of people tend to focus more on crowdfunding platforms for investments, right? They forget that crowdfunding for charitable causes can also be used as a means to scam people, can be used as a means to
Right.
defraud people, right?
Right.
Because we're asking people to contribute to a certain charitable cause, right? You can
Mhm.
obviously take the money and use it for a different purpose other than what you intended initially. So we
Right.
hope need regulation for crowdfunding for charitable causes, but the one that I know that exists today is Securities and Exchange Commission regulating crowdfunding for investment purposes.
All right, thank you, Ridwan. Talking about regulations and talking about how people tend to diverse the intended purpose of that money. Let's talk about the impact of crowdfunding on the society, and we're relating it to the endemic in Nigeria, kidnapping and all the things. I remember the Nabiha crisis the other time, the sometime earlier this year rather. Where people set up a GoFundMe for the victims of this kidnap, and it went really well, even though the required amount wasn't met up with. And talking about the Mommy Z on Twitter, how she came out and said, oh, she cooks for her husband at 4 a.m. and a lot of people took it upon themselves to raise up money for her so she doesn't have to go through that stress. Let's talk about how this crowdfunding has either positive or negative impact on the society.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, crowdfunding has so many positive impacts, so many benefits can be derived from crowdfunding. And of course, it also has its negative impacts as well, depending on how well we as a community, regulators, even the operators of the crowdfunding platform are able to manage the crowdfunding. But let's look at the positive impact of crowdfunding. One that is obvious is it's easy to be able to pull financial resources together, right, from a group of like-minded individuals. So imagine the people that you mentioned about, where they were kidnapped or their relatives were kidnapped and they couldn't, pay the ransom, and they had to go onto Twitter or any of the social media, platforms to seek support. In some
Right.
cases, these people just talk about the circumstance that they're currently going through, right? They don't necessarily ask for people to pay into their account, but one influencer or the other would see the reason to support and then create a crowdfunding, campaign for that individual.
Right.
So crowdfunding definitely has positive impact in terms of supporting people, right, when they are in precarious financial situation. The other positive impact of crowdfunding is uplifting entrepreneurs and SMEs who have been starved of access to capital, either by traditional financial institutions or the loan sharks, right? So
Right.
we know that SMEs are the backbone of the economy, right? In Nigeria today, SMEs actually represent over 60% of the total economic activities in the country. And many of these SMEs do not have access to capital, right? Either because the traditional banks have credit scoring models that do not necessarily include these people in the financial system, or in some cases, they just do not have the requirements, talking about the SMEs, to be able to meet, these obligations. So that's where crowdfunding platforms come in. And in truth, some of these SMEs can either go to their friends or their family or their relatives, right, to seek loans, to seek financial support. Okay. But when you have a crowdfunding platform where people can come on this platform, put money, that 500 naira, 1,000 naira, 2,000 naira, 500,000 naira to
Right.
support the SMEs, right? We've seen crowdfunding work in some advanced countries, in some emerging markets, that has really, really supported SMEs and entrepreneurs, right? And the positive impact of that is obviously as SMEs have access to capital, they're able to create more jobs. There will be reduction in crime rates. The economic activities of the country would obviously increase rapidly. So those are some of the positive impacts of crowdfunding, both on the society in terms of supporting charitable causes, and of course on SMEs and entrepreneurs. Now, we can also look at the negative impact of crowdfunding. Again, if it is not properly managed, because I do believe that if it is managed properly, right, crowdfunding definitely has so many benefits, and the benefits obviously outweigh the risk. One of the negative
Right.
impacts is obviously what you and I know about, which is scam. People can just make up these stories, especially for charitable causes, or in the case of investments, people take this money, but then they divert it into something else, right?
Right.
So the operators of the crowdfunding platform need to be very careful in ensuring that, they use the money judiciously. And that's where regulators come in, right?
Right.
The other negative impact is obviously the fact that crowdfunding can be used as a means to launder money, right? It can be used
True.
as a means to support, financial terrorism and other financial crimes that may not necessarily be perpetrated through the financial institution. So imagine you want to take, money that has been laundered through a commercial bank, right? The bank obviously has some risk management processes and procedures that would ensure that such transactions, right, are flagged as suspicious transactions, and you may be reported, or rather, the transaction may be reported to the the EFCC, right, or the agency
Right.
that tackles, corruption or crimes. But in a crowdfunding platform where regulators don't necessarily know, they don't even know the people that are paying this money, so it's easy for
Right.
someone to launder money to support, what's it called, financial terrorism and all of those other financial crimes that we see in our, world today.
Right. Okay. Haven't talked about all of this. Haven't looked at are the positive or negative impact of crowdfunding. I mean, let's talk about the benefits of crowdfunding. I mean, Halvest is it's a fintech company that renders financial services to the people. Now, how do people, entrepreneurs, SMEs, even the investors and the general public benefit from this crowdfunding? I mean, I was wondering if I set up a crowdfunding platform and random people, invest money in it, how do they benefit from it? How will I benefit from it?
Yeah, I mean, so the first thing is before you set up a crowdfunding platform, you need to be aware of the regulations. You also need to map out your purpose. That is, why are you setting up this crowdfunding platform, right? So I would use Halvest as an example. When we set up Halvest, obviously we wanted to be regulated, right? And we couldn't go the SEC route. So we decided to go the cooperative route. And cooperative is also a form of crowdfunding, right? Because it's a group of people putting financial
Mhm.
resources together to achieve a specific purpose. Okay, again, like I said, the concept of crowdfunding is not new, right? Technology has just scaled, this concept. So we
Right.
decided to go for the cooperative, license. We have a cooperative license, and all our investors are considered to be cooperative members of Halvest, right? So we have our bylaws, and we also have eligibility criteria in terms of who we admit into the Halvest cooperative community. So it goes back to what I said earlier, identifying why you want to set up this platform, for what purpose, and more importantly, who are the people that you want on this platform, because that's very critical. And for us at Halvest, we are not necessarily serving the entire community. We're actually very, very focused on the people that we serve in terms of identifying who they are, what their earning capacity is, because we can't promise what we cannot do. We can't promise what we do not have, resources. We're not a bank. We are not an asset management company, right? So we want to play, with the license that we've got, with the resources that we have. So, and that's essentially what we've been doing over the past 3 years at Halvest. Of course, in the coming years, in fact, not years, in coming months, hopefully, we hope to expand and then become a fully, set licensed investment platform where we can start selling securities and other investment products to the general public, right? But as of now, yes, it's crowdfunding platform, but it is done in a more exclusive way in terms of only admitting cooperative members of the community onto the platform.
Right. Okay. Talking about that, let's talk about crowdfunding as one of the instruments of ethical finance or non-interest finance. How is this going to help bolster financial inclusion in Nigeria, especially at this low rate of financial inclusion?
Yeah, I mean, so when we talk about financial inclusion, it's a term that has been going on for so many years now, right? And the government has been trying to promote financial inclusion from different avenues, different areas, right? But for us, right, as practitioners of Islamic finance or ethical finance or non-interest finance, as you may want to call it,
Right.
we do strongly believe that financial inclusion using Islamic finance is still like it hasn't gotten to the point where we expect it to get up. It's not at our desired level yet. All right. And I'll give you some examples. Nigeria, obviously is the largest, economy in Africa, right? In terms of its GDP. Um, and if you look at the demography, right? I'm talking about people from the north, people from southeast, you would realize that there are quite a number of people, right, in the northern part, even in the southern part of the country, that are being excluded from the financial system, not necessarily due to lack of access to banking products, but more importantly, due to insufficient, inadequate financial products that meet their values and principles, right?
Right.
And this is not to call out the government. I think that the government of Nigeria has been trying, by way of, for example, issuing sukuk. I think we've had about 6 or 7 sukuk that have been issued, right, over the last, I think 4, 5, 6 years now, right? But that is not enough, right? We need more companies, especially the more established financial institutions, to either start, setting up standalone non-interest financial institutions that will cater to this market, or start creating windows that will cater to this market. And it doesn't have to be, oh, we're only selling to Muslims. It should be about we're selling an alternative financial product that satisfies, the needs of a group of people who have specific values and principles. And I'll give you an example. UK is arguably one of the biggest Islamic finance hub in the world today, right? UK
Right.
is the leading Islamic finance hub in the whole of Europe, right? And obviously UK is a secular, country, right? I don't know the number of Muslims in the UK, but I'm sure they're now up to 6 million, right? Now, but UK has been able to create financial products, right, that meets the needs of these demographic, talking about those that want financial product that aligns with their faith, values, and principles, right? Even the government, is supporting by issuing sukuk, right, bonds. We've got so many Islamic fintechs in the UK today that have raised millions of dollars, right, in creating, fintech solutions to meet the needs of their people, right? And we're talking about a secular country. How much more a country like Nigeria, where you've got almost half of its entire population, who are Muslims, right? Or who have certain values and principles, and they need financial products that align with these values. So,
Right.
in our opinion, Islamic finance can be used as a tool to drive financial inclusion by encouraging small startups like Halvest, established companies to create windows that will, support, financial inclusion in the country.
Right. Oh, thank you so much, Ridwan. That was an insightful session. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Just like what Ridwan said, some people tend to misuse opportunities, but at the end of the day, crowdfunding has helped significantly. It has helped people significantly. And that brings us to the end of Islamic Finance Weekly today. Don't forget to keep it to date as next week on the program. Follow us on all our social media platforms displayed on the screen. Thank you for watching. I am Rahma Saint Muhammad.